In the heart of a quiet suburban town, where children play in sunlit parks and neighbors greet each other with warm smiles, a shadow crept unnoticed. One by one, people disappeared. No witnesses, no warning, just silence. But on each victim's doorstep, a sinister calling card, a doll, perfectly crafted, eerily lifelike, and dressed in the exact clothes the victim wore the day they vanished. Fear swept through the neighborhood. Who was next? Parents kept their children indoors. Friends avoided each other's homes. And behind locked doors, the question echoed, who is the Dollmaker? And more importantly, why? Was this a twisted form of art? A deranged predator's need to control? Or something even darker? As the disappearances mounted, the case spiraled into the inexplicable, a chilling puzzle that gripped the nation. This is the story of the Dollmaker's curse, a tale of obsession, terror, and the lengths one person will go to leave their mark. Stay with us as we unravel the mystery behind the dolls before the next one appears. The first disappearance seemed almost mundane. A young woman, Sarah Palmer, missed her morning shift at the local cafe. Friends assumed she overslept. Her mother believed her phone had died. But when Sarah's car was found abandoned in the lot behind the cafe, panic set in. Then came the doll. The doll arrived 2 days later, left on the Palmer family's front steps. It was dressed in the same yellow sundress Sarah had worn that morning. Her mother described it as disturbingly accurate, down to the tiny rip on the hem and the matching sandals. The craftsmanship was unlike anything anyone had seen before. At first, police treated it as a grim prank, someone exploiting the family's grief. But just 3 weeks later, the nightmare repeated. This time, it was Martin Rhodes, a high school math teacher. He never returned from his morning jog, and just like before, 2 days later, a doll appeared. By the time the third victim vanished, Emily Chen, a nurse who had just finished her night shift, the pattern was undeniable. Each victim vanished without a struggle, without a sound, and each doll, eerily lifelike, arrived within 48 hours, dressed in the victim's last known outfit. The media frenzy erupted. The predator was dubbed the Dollmaker, and their sinister calling card became a chilling signature. Families in the neighborhood were gripped by paranoia. Locks were double-checked. Children were escorted everywhere. But the disappearances didn't stop. 5 victims, 5 dolls, each one more detailed than the last. As police scrambled for leads, the community began to question. How could someone create such lifelike replicas so quickly? Were the dolls being made in advance? And if so, how did the Dollmaker know who would be next? But the dolls weren't just lifelike. They were unsettlingly precise. Emily Chen's doll wore a bracelet engraved with her name, a gift from her fiancé. Martin Rhodes's doll had his exact running shoes, dirt stains and all. These weren't coincidences, they were clues. Clues to a mind obsessed with detail, control, and perfection. With no witnesses, no signs of struggle, and no clear motive, investigators were left with a single chilling question. What kind of person could orchestrate such precise disappearances, and why? The police knew they were racing against time. With every disappearance, the pressure mounted. Initial theories centered on the dolls, how they were made, and who might have the skill to create them. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, suggesting someone with experience in fine detail work, perhaps an artist, a toy maker, or even a taxidermist. Forensics teams examined the dolls meticulously, searching for any clues. They found synthetic materials, hand-painted features and fibers that matched the victim's clothing. But frustratingly, no fingerprints, no DNA, no identifying marks were left behind. The Dollmaker was careful, too careful. Detectives began retracing the victim's last movements, hoping to find connections. Sarah Palmer had been at her cafe the night before she disappeared. Martin Rhodes was jogging in his usual park. Emily Chen left her hospital after a night shift. Each location was public, yet no witnesses came forward. No one had seen anything unusual. As the investigation deepened, police discovered subtle connections between the victims. All 5 had recently been featured in local media, a community spotlight article, a charity event, a school newsletter. Was the Dollmaker selecting targets from these public profiles? And if so, how were they tracked so precisely? The case took a chilling turn when investigators found something hidden within the dolls, tiny, nearly imperceptible symbols etched into their backs. The markings resembled a maker's signature, a twisted calling card that only deepened the mystery. Experts suggested the symbols could be part of a code, a way for the predator to catalog their work, but decoding it led to more questions than answers. Desperate for leads, police turned to the public. A press conference was held, urging anyone with information about the dolls or the victims to come forward. Tips flooded in, sightings of suspicious individuals, rumors of underground doll makers, even cryptic notes sent anonymously, but none of it led anywhere concrete. The psychological profile of the Dollmaker began to take shape. FBI profilers suggested the predator was methodical, patient, and likely living a double life. This was someone who could blend seamlessly into the community, someone who appeared ordinary but harbored a dark obsession. They theorized that the dolls represented more than trophies. They were symbols of control, a way to immortalize the victims. One key breakthrough came when a witness reported seeing a dark van parked near Emily Chen's hospital the night she disappeared. Surveillance footage revealed a shadowy figure stepping out, but the resolution was too poor to identify them. The van's plates were stolen, another dead end. As frustration grew, so did fear. The community, once tight-knit and trusting, began to unravel. Neighborhood watch groups formed, and every stranger was treated with suspicion. Parents stopped allowing their children to walk alone. The Dollmaker wasn't just taking lives, they were destroying the community's sense of safety. Then, a potential lead surfaced. A retired dollmaker named Henry Graves was flagged for questioning. Known for his intricate, almost lifelike designs, Graves had a history of eccentric behavior. But after an intense interrogation and a search of his workshop, nothing incriminating was found. Graves, like so many others, was ruled out. The investigation dragged on, and for every lead pursued, a dozen more appeared. Police were chasing shadows, and the Dollmaker was always one step ahead. Despite the mounting pressure, the task force refused to give up. They continued piecing together the fragments, hoping for a breakthrough. The dolls, the victims, the symbols, somewhere, the key to stopping the Dollmaker lay hidden. But as the community held its breath, the question remained. Would they find it before another doll appeared? What kind of mind creates such chilling works of art, turning tragedy into a macabre masterpiece? Forensic psychologists and profilers tasked with unraveling the Dollmaker's motives began to explore the layers of this predator's psyche. What they uncovered was as unsettling as the crimes themselves. The dolls weren't merely souvenirs, they were representations of power. By creating these lifelike replicas, the Dollmaker wasn't just taking lives, they were immortalizing their victims, preserving them in a form that could be controlled, admired, even worshipped. This wasn't just about murder, it was about domination. Experts speculated that the Dollmaker might be driven by a deep-seated need for perfection. Each doll's uncanny accuracy suggested an obsession with detail, a compulsion to recreate the victims as they were in their final moments. But why? Was it a way to freeze time, to stop them from ever escaping, even in death? Psychological profiling painted a picture of a predator who likely experienced a traumatic past. Perhaps feelings of inadequacy or rejection had festered over time, warping into a need to assert control over others. By turning people into dolls, the Dollmaker could strip away their autonomy, reducing them to silent, obedient figures. In their mind, it was a twisted form of revenge against a world they felt powerless to control. But the precision of these crimes hinted at more than psychological damage. It suggested a terrifying intellect. The Dollmaker wasn't impulsive or reckless. Every disappearance was meticulously planned, each doll crafted with care. This level of control required time, patience, and skill. The Dollmaker was hiding in plain sight, someone who could blend seamlessly into the community while carrying out acts of unspeakable horror. Some experts pointed to parallels with other notorious killers. The use of tokens or trophies is not uncommon in criminal psychology, but the Dollmaker's methods were unique. Most killers choose objects to remind them of their crimes. The Dollmaker didn't take, they created. Each doll wasn't just a reminder, it was a reinvention, a statement of ownership over their victims. Then, there were the symbols carved into the backs of the dolls. Cryptographers and psychologists debated their meaning. Were they signatures, cataloging the predator's collection? Or were they messages, cryptic confessions meant to taunt the police? The symbols remained as much a mystery as the Dollmaker's identity. As investigators delved deeper, they began to consider the possibility that the dolls themselves might reveal more about the predator. The level of craftsmanship suggested years of practice, possibly even professional training. This wasn't a hobbyist. This was someone who had spent decades perfecting their skills, someone who likely had access to specialized tools and materials. But what made the Dollmaker even more dangerous was their ability to evoke fear on such a massive scale. Their crimes weren't just about the victims, they were about the community. Each disappearance, each doll was a statement. No one is safe. The predator thrived on this fear, feeding on the chaos they left behind. Yet, despite their precision and control, the Dollmaker's actions hinted at cracks in their facade. The need to leave the dolls to carve the symbols. These weren't just acts of arrogance. They were desperate attempts to be recognized, to make the world see their art. In their mind, this wasn't just violence, it was their legacy. Profilers warned that the Dollmaker's compulsions would only escalate. Each disappearance, each doll, was feeding an addiction. The predator wasn't just creating a collection, they were building towards something bigger, something that would cement their place in infamy. And so, the question loomed. Could the Dollmaker be stopped before they completed their masterpiece? Or was this predator already planning their next victim, their next doll, their next chilling symbol of control? The Dollmaker's reign of terror remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind the most ordinary of facades. In a quiet, unsuspecting neighborhood, fear took root, fed by one person's twisted obsession and the silent, haunting presence of their creations. Despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement, the case remains shrouded in mystery. The dolls, the symbols, the precision, each piece of the puzzle points to a mind as brilliant as it is disturbed. The Dollmaker's identity remains unknown, their motives elusive, their work unfinished. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this story isn't just the predator's actions, but the fear they left behind. A community that once thrived on trust now lives in shadows. Parents no longer let their children roam freely. Friends view each other with suspicion. And every doll, no matter how innocent, carries a sinister weight. Experts say that predators like the Dollmaker rarely stop on their own. Their need for control, for recognition, is insatiable. And as we lock our doors and keep watch over our loved ones, one question lingers. Will the Dollmaker strike again? And if they do, will anyone see them coming? True crime stories like this remind us of the fragility of safety, of how quickly the familiar can turn into the unimaginable. But they also remind us of resilience, the determination of families, investigators, and communities to confront the darkness, no matter how insurmountable it seems. As we close this chapter of the Dollmaker's curse, we're left with an unsettling truth. Sometimes, the scariest monsters aren't hiding under our beds. They're walking among us, crafting their nightmares in plain sight.